In one generation, China went from isolated poverty to challenging the world's strongest powers. In 1978, China was poor, isolated, and recovering from decades of political turmoil. Then, Deng Xiaoping made a dangerous choice. Keep the system's political control, but unleash market forces inside it. Farmers gained incentives, factories gained autonomy, and foreign investment entered selected cities. Shenzhen became the experiment, transforming from a fishing town into a global manufacturing center. The result was not an overnight miracle, but a relentless feedback loop of work, exports, skills, and capital. Yet the first question is uncomfortable. Why did this gamble succeed when similar reforms failed elsewhere? That gamble mattered because China was attempting something far larger than economic growth. The stakes were enormous because China was not simply trying to grow. It was trying to grow without surrendering control, while hundreds of millions remained rural and poor. The Soviet Union chose political liberalization before economic stability, then collapsed in 1991. China watched that failure closely and drew the opposite lesson. Its leaders opened markets selectively, tested policies locally, and expanded only after results appeared. But this created a new danger. Once millions depended on growth, a slowdown could threaten the entire political bargain. So what powered growth at a scale no country had ever sustained? The clues point toward a force bigger than any single policy. The answer was scale, but scale alone was not enough. China connected cheap labor, disciplined infrastructure building, high household savings, and aggressive export strategy into one system. Ports expanded, highways crossed provinces, and factories learned from foreign companies before competing with them. In 2001, joining the World Trade Organization gave Chinese manufacturers access to global markets, while global brands gained access to China's workforce and consumers. Every shipment created jobs, skills, tax revenue, and better logistics for the next shipment. But the most astonishing transformation was still hidden inside the numbers. Between 1978 and 2020, more than 800 million people in China were lifted from extreme poverty. That is not merely a statistic. It is a civilization-scale relocation of human possibility. Villages emptied into cities, universities expanded, and millions of engineers joined industries that barely existed a generation earlier. China moved from copying products to designing phones, batteries, trains, and advanced machinery. Its rise changed supply chains, commodity markets, military calculations, and the balance of influence across Asia. The world had expected China to become richer. It did not expect China to become technologically ambitious. That leap explains both China's power and its present dilemma. The old formula relied on exports, construction, cheap labor, and ever-expanding investment. But those engines now face aging demographics, property debt, weaker global demand, and sharper technological restrictions. China is responding by shifting toward domestic consumption, advanced manufacturing, renewable energy, and strategic self-reliance. Its electric vehicle and solar industries show the new direction. Compete through technology, not only through lower prices. The rise is no longer about catching up. It is about deciding what comes after catching up. And then, quietly, China crossed into a different kind of ambition. China's rise was not one breakthrough, one leader, or one secret plan. It was a sequence of controlled risks. Reform the economy, build infrastructure, join global trade, educate a huge population, and then move up the technology ladder. That path lifted living standards on an extraordinary scale, but it also created new tensions the country cannot ignore. The final lesson is larger than China. Nations rise when institutions turn pressure into learning and ambition into capacity. China's next chapter will reveal whether its greatest strength is control or the ability to keep changing. China's rise also changed the physical map of the world. Through ports, railways, highways, power stations, and digital networks, China connected distant provinces to factories, and factories to foreign markets. In coastal cities, deep water ports turned shipping into a national advantage, while inland rail links pulled new regions into the economy. Chinese companies then carried this construction model overseas, financing roads, bridges, and energy projects across Asia, Africa, Latin America, and Europe. That expansion gave Beijing new commercial relationships, but it also created arguments over debt, dependence, labor standards, and environmental costs. At home, the same infrastructure helped spread high-speed internet, mobile payments, and e-commerce, allowing millions of consumers and small businesses to participate in markets that once required banks or physical stores. The result was more than faster growth. It was a new system of movement, trade, and influence. Yet its future depends on whether these networks produce trusted innovation and shared prosperity, rather than simply more capacity and reach for the next generation of global economic competition. China's next challenge may reshape the entire world. Subscribe for the next video where we trace the power struggle behind the technology race.